Okay, so there are about four skills that you need to master if you want to learn how to interact with people and become an effective communicator. So they are as follows, and they must all be combined when speaking with people. You have to be an engaged. The first skill is engaged listening. The second one is nonverbal communication. Three is managing stress in the moment, and four is asserting yourself in a respectful way. So, what's some things that could be stopping you from communicating effectively? Um, when you're stressed and you have out of control emotions, um, stress people are more likely to when you're stressed, you're more likely to misread people. You can send confusing signals, and there will be often a lot of misunderstandings if you're stressed and your emotions do not portray what you are trying to say. It's always better to calm down before an argument. A lack of focus. So you cannot communicate effectively when you're multitasking. So don't spend all your time when you're talking to someone planning on what you're going to say next, looking at your phone. Just stay concentrated and pay attention to what they're saying. Inconsistent body language. So you cannot be what you're saying, what's coming out of your mouth cannot be contradicting your body language because then you will not be communicating effectively. Um, so if you're talking to someone cheerfully but you're standing with your arms crossed, that's a little bit of a contradiction. Finally, negative body language. So there's inconsistent where they just can't predict what kind of mood you're in, or you have negative body language. So you stand there and look around, act uninterested, tapping your feet, crossing your arms, looking anywhere but at them. So that's some things that can stop you from communicating effectively. But so there are four skills. So the first skill is to become an engaged listener. So we often focus on what we should say, but it's more about listening and understanding not only the information or what the other person is trying to tell us, but the speaker's emotions as well. When a person feels understood and heard, it's easier to build connections with them. Listening in an engaged way reduces stress. So if they're calm, you're calm. It's a nice stress-free conversation, and it will be much easier to interact with a person. The thing that you have to consider is even if they're angry, you can stay calm as well. That would help to calm them down, or it would show them that they need to take it down a notch, and it would help you to better process what you're saying. You need to stay present and in the moment. Listen to all the little things like intonations, cues. Repeat their words in your head. Use your right ear, which is actually it's weird because your right ear is better at understanding verbal communication. So if you are standing someone facing them with your left side, it might be worth it to make sure your right ear is facing them, especially if you're having trouble understanding them. Repeat their words in your head so you just make sure that you are following what they're saying, and avoid talking about yourself or concentrating about what you want to say, because they can tell when you're standing there fidgeting waiting to say your part. It shows that you're not listening to them. Show interest with body and verbal cues. So don't be judgmental. Hear them out and try to understand what they're saying. Give feedback such as "What do you mean when you say this?" or "Sounds like you are trying to say this." But don't repeat back exactly what they said because it'll just kind of sound like you're being a broken record and not actually interested. So summarize what they say and ask them some questions about it. Show that you were listening to details. Number two is to pay attention to body language. So um, body language can describe how you're feeling sometimes uh, better than words, or even yeah. So body language can describe how you're feeling better than words sometimes. It can help you to connect with others and effectively express how you're feeling. So it can how you move, how you look, how you listen, and how you react. So open body language or kind of friendly body language is important. Arms uncrossed, you're standing there freely, not in a tense way. You're sitting on the edge of your seat, upright and not slumped down. This is especially important for a situation like an interview, but is also important when you're listening to anyone. Uh, you can use your body language to make what you're saying have more effect, such as patting your friend on the back when you're assuring them, or doing a fist pump when you're happy or excited. And you also need to be aware of individual differences. So people from different cultures, backgrounds, they all communicate in different ways, and it's important to consider these things. Don't focus on individual movements, so you want to look at their nonverbal communication as a whole, and don't focus on if they cross their arms for a second. Don't just focus on that. Look at everything else. Consider the context and the situation. So, for example, you'd be using a different tone with a child than you would be with an adult, and avoiding negative body language at all costs. So this is very important. So even when you do not have positive feelings, try to show that you do. So stand upright, shoulders back, smiling. You don't have to smile, but it helps. Eye contact, whatever emotions are appropriate for the time, but don't show negative body language. Be confident and appear at least like you are interested and ready to have a conversation. Number three would be to keep stress in check. You want to make sure that you are not stressed during conversations. So if you can relieve stress and return to a calm state during arguments, you're much less likely to do or to say things that you would otherwise regret. So when you're calm, you can assess scenarios better. You can make good judgment, and you won't say something hurtful or do something hurtful, or you're less likely to. So stalling tactics. So you can use stalling tactics to give time to think about a question or to ask a question to be repeated. Um, it, so you can use stalling tactics such as asking them to repeat it or clarification. So it's better to ask again than to not understand something well or to have to come back later and ask the same exact question. Pausing can be an effective way to collect your thoughts. If you pause, you consider what you say more. You can change what you were going to originally say, and maybe you can think of a better way to say it. Point, proof, comment. So that is you want to stick to a point, proof, comment type of way of speaking. So similar to English and writing, stick to one point. Give some supporting pieces of evidence or information. Don't make your explanation too long. You want to speak clearly with articulation and keep an even tone. Um, you want to keep an even tone. Stay relaxed. Do not appear fidgety as much as you can help it. Some people, I mean, it's understandable because it's hard to stay still. But as much as you can, try not to appear that you're nervous. Summarize your response or point, and then allow the other person to talk. So even if it leaves a silence, the silence could mean many things, but it's not a bad thing. It leaves them time to think about what you're saying. It leaves everyone time to reconsider what has been said. You need to learn how to recognize when you become stressed. So if you realize that your muscles are tight, your breathing is shallow, your fists are squeezed, are clenched, or you're sweating, take a moment to calm down or just postpone the conversation. Uh, you want to find something that relieves your stress or something that's soothing to you, and like a stress ball or something, anything that would take your mind off the stress. Look for humor in the situation. Don't take it too seriously, and always be willing to compromise with them. Sometimes it's very difficult to come to a conclusion that everyone is happy with. In this case, it's usually better to spend some time away from the family, from the situation that is causing you stress, and to agree to disagree for the time being. So you can just say, okay, well, we'll come back to this. For now, let's agree to disagree, and we'll figure it out later when we both think about what we want to say. Uh, and finally, you want to value your opinion and yourself because it's important as anyone else's opinion, and it holds just as much value and weight. And you want to know your needs and your wants, but you should learn how to express them in a way that doesn't infringe on other people's rights and on their needs and wants. So you want to receive you need to learn how to receive feedback appropriately, such as criticism, compliments. You can learn from your mistakes when you are criticized, uh, and asking for help too. Asking for help is very important. Uh, learn finally you need to learn how to say no. You need to know your limits, and you can't let other people take advantage of you. Look for other options to make sure that everyone is satisfied, but being assertive can really help you sometimes, because if you say no, if you say yes to everything, it doesn't help your case in arguments. It doesn't. It makes you seem like a pushover. Saying no sometimes is okay. Empathetic assertion makes you seem sensitive to the other person. There's two types of assertion. There's empathetic assertion and there's escalating assertion. So empathetic makes you seem more sensitive to the other person. They can see that you care. You recognize the other person's situation and their feelings, and and then you can relate with them. They see that you understand their problem, and then you can tell them that your need or your opinion, and they will better listen to you. So escalating assertion is different. It's when your first attempts aren't working. So you're talking to someone, they just aren't listening to you. You can become increasingly firm. So don't just go from being calm to angry right away. You can become increasingly firm, uh, and progressively make them aware. You can become increasingly firm and make them aware of consequences, such as if you do not do this, I will be forced to take legal action. But this isn't something that you should be saying from the beginning. It should be something like if they really aren't listening to you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my video.